Monsieur, j'ai une lettre qui m'a été confiée et qui doit être remise uniquement à la police.
Monsieur le procureur général, une lettre est arrivée ce matin au commissariat. Elle concerne une affaire très grave. Je vous la remets immédiatement.
Monsieur le procureur général, je me dois de vous alerter sur une affaire d'une extrême gravité. Une jeune femme est retenue captive dans une maison respectable de notre ville. Elle est emprisonnée depuis des décennies, privée de lumière du jour, de nourriture correcte et de tout contact humain, vivant dans la misère et la saleté. Sa vie dépend entièrement de ceux qui la maintiennent dans l'ombre.
Sainte Mère, il y a une âme vivante dans ce recoin.
Before the discovery, before the scandal that would shock the city, this family had been one of the most admired households. The mother, elegant, impeccably dressed, her hair always pinned like a crown, hosted gatherings where influential men drank wine beneath chandeliers. Her home smelled of beeswax, roses, and money. People admired her poise, her discipline, her ability to command a room with a single raised eyebrow. Her son was known for academic excellence. I had seen him once, years ago, when I was still a young constable assigned to security at a public event. He carried himself like a man polished to a shine by expectation. But it was the daughter who captured hearts. She was gentle, artistic, soft-spoken, a woman of beauty and warmth, with dark eyes that reflected a kindness unstoiled by the rigid formality of her upbringing. People described her as le sourire de la maison, the one light in a home too concerned with appearances. But light attracts shadows, and her shadow came in the form of a man she loved with all her heart. His name was never spoken publicly after the scandal, but I remember his face. I saw him once in the early 1870s in a courthouse corridor. He had the look of a man who had struggled for everything. His suit modest, his shoes worn, his manner polite but weary. A man from a humbler class, trying to rise in a society that refused to forget where one came from. And yet the daughter loved him. Their romance grew quietly at first, through letters exchanged secretly, through whispered conversations in cafes, through brief moments stolen beneath the gaze of a society that expected young women to marry only upward. I have since read fragments of their correspondence, letters discovered in boxes during the investigation. She wrote to him,
Tu es la seule part de ma vie qui m'appartienne vraiment.
He replied,
Je ne veux pas briller dans la société. Je veux seulement briller dans tes yeux.
But love between a well-born daughter and a modest lawyer was like a crime in the mother's world. And crimes in that house carried punishment. When the daughter informed her mother that she intended to marry the lawyer, the house transformed. Servants later told us that the mother's fury was unlike anything they had ever seen. She called the daughter,
Vous êtes ingrate, folle, déterminée à déshonorer la famille!
She ordered the lawyer banned from their property. Letters addressed to the daughter were intercepted and burned, but the daughter persisted. She told her mother she would wait. She told her she would refuse all other suitors. She told her she would not abandon the man she loved. And that, I believe, was the moment the mother decided that if she could not control her daughter's heart, she would control her body. The city whispered at first.
Tu l'as vue récemment? Non, elle n'est pas apparue aux réceptions depuis des mois. Elle est peut-être malade? Ou partie en voyage?
But no explanation came from the house. And with time, the daughter faded from memory, becoming just another young woman of privilege who had retired from society. Such things were common. People withdrew to the countryside, to convalesce, to escape scandal, or simply because wealthy families preferred privacy. Only one man continued to ask. The lawyer. He searched for her. He wrote letters. He visited the house repeatedly. He begged for news. But the doors never opened for him again. Eventually, weakened by illness and heartbreak, he died, alone, believing she had abandoned him. That part of the story haunts me more than anything else. A man died thinking the woman who loved him had simply left. In truth, she had been only meters away, behind a wooden door. What happened during those decades was revealed only after the discovery. And even then, only through broken testimony, servants' confessions, and the condition in which we found her. She had been locked in a small room. A room whose window shutters had been nailed shut. A room where food was slid through a slot like an offering to a prisoner. A room where a woman was left to disappear from the world, but forced to remain alive. At first, she screamed, but the neighbors heard nothing. And in those days, especially in noble neighborhoods, people did not question families like hers. Over time, the screams became whispers, then sobs, then silence. The servants knew, but fear kept them quiet. Some had tried to help her, but were threatened with dismissal, imprisonment, ruin. The mother ruled the house like a tyrant draped in lace, and so the daughter remained forgotten, except by fate and by the anonymous soul who finally wrote the letter. When the Procureur Général finished reading the letter, he ordered me to gather a small team of officers. I remember climbing the staircase of the house. The air smelled too clean, lavender and polished wood, as if the house itself was determined to hide something. We approached the locked door at the end of the hall. A maid stepped forward suddenly, stuttering.
Cette pièce n'est pas utilisée. C'est juste du stockage.
The procureur gave the order. We forced the door open. The moment the light entered that room is carved permanently into my memory. Inside was darkness. Blackness so deep it swallowed the floor and walls. Only a thin, broken figure stirred on a filthy floor, shielding her eyes from the sudden brightness. The woman, or what remained of her. Her hair had grown in tangled ropes. Her body was frail, wasted. Her voice was reduced to a ragged whisper. She clutched a dirty sheet like an animal afraid of the sun. Rats skittered across straw. Insects crawled on moldy food scraps, and the air felt thick enough to choke. She looked at us with a mixture of terror and bewilderment, as if she no longer understood that the world outside still existed. My heart broke in my chest. I had seen dead bodies treated with more dignity than the life we found in that room. The weight of decades pressed down on us all. Outside, the city would not yet know. Inside, a single door had held a world in darkness. And now, that door was open. The suspense of what would happen next, justice, vengeance, or tragedy, hung heavy in the room. The air itself seemed to wait. The moment we carried her out of that room, the house changed. The silence cracked. The walls, once polished, proud, perfect, seemed to shrink under the weight of the truth that had been sealed inside them for 25 years. Neighbors gathered at the gates, whispering with rising horror as stretcher-bearers emerged with the frail, blinking woman who had not seen daylight since the presidency of McMahon. She whispered again, voice trembling like an old sheet in the wind.
Mon Dieu, la lumière, comme c'est beau.
Those words pierced every officer present. Not a man among us kept dry eyes. The mother, still lying sick in her bed, did not come to the door. Whether her illness was real or performed, God alone knows. But she lay there pale as marble, her chest rising and falling quickly, her face stiff with the terror she could no longer command into stillness. The son stood frozen in the corridor, shaking so violently I thought he might collapse. His lips kept moving, forming words he never spoke aloud. Guilt, panic, a lifetime of complicity finally falling upon him. I cannot say. All I know is this. There are moments in a man's life when truth arrives not gently, but like a stone thrown through glass. This was one. By the next morning, the scandal had exploded. Reporters crowded outside the police station. People shouted, cursed, demanded the mother's arrest. Carriages clogged the street, and the public, horrified, furious, treated the case as both a tragedy and an unforgivable betrayal of social trust. The idea that a noble family, a respected family, had kept their own daughter locked in a dark, window-shuttered room for decades rattled the foundations of Parisian society. It shattered the illusion that class and cruelty could not coexist. But amidst the shouting and the newspaper chaos, there was a quieter storm. Inside the hospital where she had been taken, I visited her briefly during those early days, not as an officer, but as a man who felt a strange, inexplicable responsibility for her. The doctors stood at her bedside, shaking their heads. Some cried. She weighed little more than a child. Her bones pressed against her skin, her hair fell in clumps. Her eyes, once described as warm and soft, now drifted like lanterns floating between memories and reality. When she saw the window, she reached out toward it the way a drowning person reaches for air. They fed her broth with a spoon. Her voice returned in fragments. She asked quietly,
Est-ce qu'il est venu?
I knew whom she meant. The lawyer. The man she had loved. The man who had died believing she had left him. The nurses looked to me, silently asking what they should say. I lied. I told her gently.
Il n'est pas ici, mademoiselle. Reposez-vous maintenant.
To tell her he was dead would have shattered her again, and I believe she had endured enough breaking for one lifetime. A few days later, we returned to the house to formally arrest the mother. She remained in her bed, claiming weakness. Her hands trembled, her breath wheezed, her face was drained of its former cold beauty. But even then, even with the entire city baying for her punishment, she refused to admit wrongdoing.
Je l'ai fait pour son bien. Elle était hystérique, incapable. Elle nous aurait tous ruinés.
Us, not she, not family. Just the reputation she cherished more than anything. To her, the world outside her home had always been composed of admirers and enemies. Her daughter, tragically, had become the latter. The reporters wrote that she collapsed upon arrest. They called it shock. I called it fear. The kind that comes only when a tyrant realizes the world has seen behind the curtain. She died not long after, without trial, without confession, without remorse. The son's case was more complicated. Some argued he was weak-minded. Some argued he had been under the mother's tyrannical influence. Others believed he shared responsibility fully. What I know is this: he had lived his entire adult life in that house. He had walked past that locked door for decades. He had heard, or chosen not to hear, the cries, the silence, the truth. When questioned, he stammered excuses until his words collapsed.
Je ne savais pas. Je pensais qu'elle était folle. Mère disait que c'était mieux ainsi. J'avais peur.
In the end, he avoided prison, but he did not avoid judgment. People spat at him in the street. Children pointed at him as if he were a ghost. Neighbors refused to meet his gaze. He lived out the rest of his life in shadow, a man swallowed by the consequences of his silence. The rescued woman lived under constant care. She was safe, fed, treated with tenderness, but time had carved deep wounds in her mind. She never fully returned to the world. The years of darkness, isolation, and hunger had frozen something inside her. She spoke softly, often drifting into memories of her younger life, asking for the man she loved, wondering when she might finally see him. The truth, when it was finally told to her, shattered her quietly, not with screams, not with tears, but with a hollow, distant silence. The silence of someone who had already lost too much to lose anything more. She died several years later, gentle, fragile, and free at last, though too late for freedom to change her fate. I have spent decades in the service of the law. I have seen crimes committed in alleyways, in drunken taverns, in moments of rage. But this was a crime committed in silence, in luxury, in a house admired by society, in a room no one thought to question. I ask myself, even now in my old age, how many doors remained closed because no one dared knock? How many screams were dismissed because they came from respectable houses? How many lives were buried in darkness simply because the world trusted the wrong people? Her story taught me that evil does not always wear rags. Sometimes it wears lace. Sometimes it hosts dinner parties. Sometimes it smiles. And sometimes it hides behind a door, waiting for someone, anyone, to finally open it.
is not only about a woman imprisoned behind the door. It is about a society that decided that door did not need to be opened. It is about neighbors who heard nothing because they expected nothing to be wrong in a house so polished. About servants who feared punishment more than the suffering they witnessed. About a mother who valued reputation above her daughter's life. About a son who confused obedience with innocence. About a lawyer who died with a broken heart, not knowing the truth lay only a few steps away. And about a city that mourned only after the damage was irreversible. But above all, it is about silence, the kind that grows in the shadows of power, the kind that thrives behind curtains of privilege, the kind that destroys slowly, invisibly, completely. Her story forces us to ask the question we avoid the most. When we see something wrong, do we speak, or do we stay silent, hoping someone else will knock on the door? Because evil is not always loud. It does not always scream. It does not always lurk in dark alleys or wear the face of a monster. Sometimes, evil is polite, well-dressed, respected, invisible. Sometimes, evil lives inside the very homes society admires. And sometimes, it is only a single letter, a single voice, a single act of courage that brings the truth back into the light. As you leave this story tonight, remember her, not for the years stolen from her, but for the lesson those years leave behind. Never trust silence. Never ignore the door that no one opens. Never assume that suffering cannot exist behind beauty. Because somewhere, even now, another story like this is waiting in the dark, waiting for justice, waiting for someone brave enough to finally turn the handle. Before you go, if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you pause for even a moment, please subscribe. Your subscription helps us bring more hidden stories back into the light. And to those who have already subscribed, thank you. Your support keeps this community alive. If you have a story, a mystery, a memory, a tragedy, a warning, a whisper, leave it in the comments. Someone out there might need to hear it. And to everyone watching, whether you are subscribed already or you're still thinking about it, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing these stories to matter. Wishing you a peaceful, gentle, and truly beautiful weekend. This is Anonymo, and this